Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, wind pressing against your face, your heart suspended between fear and freedom. Below lies the abyss of excess, above the barren heights of deprivation. You sense that either way, too much or too little, leads to a kind of fall. And yet, balance, that narrow path in between, feels impossibly fragile. You try to hold still, but the human spirit trembles by nature. We are creatures of extremes. We love too much or not enough. We speak too soon or stay silent too long. We work ourselves into exhaustion or drift into apathy. And all the while, we tell ourselves we're chasing clarity. But clarity, as the ancient philosopher Aristotle taught, is not found in the sharpness of certainty, but in the subtle art of proportion. He called it the golden mean, the delicate equilibrium between two vices, excess and deficiency. Courage, for instance, lies between recklessness and cowardice. Generosity sits between wastefulness and greed. The mean is not mediocrity, it is mastery. Yet here lies the paradox: balance feels unnatural to us. It requires restraint when we crave indulgence, boldness when fear whispers retreat. It demands a wisdom that listens beneath impulse, beyond emotion. The golden mean is not a formula to memorize, but a tension to live within. It's the invisible line that guides us between chaos and order, desire and discipline, self and society. To walk it is to live artfully, as if existence itself were a performance of poise. Aristotle once wrote that virtue is concerned with feelings and actions, in which excess and deficiency are errors. It sounds simple, until life asks you to choose between truth and kindness, ambition and peace, loyalty and integrity. Then suddenly the mean becomes less of a concept and more of a battlefield. You see, the world we inhabit thrives on imbalance. It rewards extremes, louder voices, faster decisions, stronger stances. Moderation is mocked as weakness. Yet what if strength lies precisely in composure? What if the truest power is not in domination, but in self-governance, in the quiet mastery of proportion? The Stoics sought apatheia, freedom from destructive emotion. The Buddhists spoke of the middle way, liberation from attachment and aversion. Aristotle's golden mean stands beside these teachings, whispering the same truth through a different tongue. Clarity is not the absence of conflict, but harmony within it. But what does harmony feel like in a world this loud? What does balance mean when chaos feels like home? To live the golden mean is to accept that clarity will never come from the outside, not from applause, certainty, or the security of control. It arises from a subtler source, the ability to see oneself truthfully and to adjust moment by moment toward the center. Yet the center is never fixed. What was balance yesterday may be blindness today. To live wisely is not to stand still, but to dance, to pivot, pause, and move again. As Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." To find your mean, you must face your extremes, the parts of you that overreach and the parts that withdraw. You must confront your appetites, your fears, your hidden longings, and bring them into dialogue. Because the golden mean is not the death of desire, it's the discipline of it. It's not the suppression of emotion, but its orchestration. Imagine your life as a symphony. Each emotion is an instrument. Anger, fear, joy, love, pride, sorrow. If one dominates, the song collapses into noise. But when each plays in balance, the result is not restraint, it's resonance. The ancients called that resonance eudaimonia, the flourishing of the soul. Not happiness as pleasure, but happiness as harmony. The kind that comes not from what you have, but from what you have balanced within. So the question becomes, can we live without leaning too far into the extremes that define us? Can we walk the line between chaos and control and find, in that fragile middle, the art of being whole? The path forward demands not perfection, but precision, a return to the forgotten geometry of the soul. It begins quietly, the slide into excess. First, it feels like passion, a rush of certainty, a flood of emotion, a spark of conviction that ignites the dullness of everyday life. You tell yourself this is what purpose feels like: intensity, devotion, the full burn of existence. But somewhere, without noticing, The flame stops illuminating and starts consuming. Extremes seduce us because they promise simplicity. They whisper, choose a side, be all in, don't doubt. And for a moment it feels good, intoxicating even, to stop questioning, to replace uncertainty with identity, to become someone who knows. But the human soul is not built to live at the edges. It fractures under the strain of one-sided truths. Aristotle understood this long before our age of algorithms and outrage. He saw how people drift toward extremes because they fear ambiguity. Balance demands self-awareness, and self-awareness demands discomfort. It's far easier to love too much or hate too much than to dwell in the quiet unease of discernment. Extremes offer clarity, but it's the clarity of blindness. They tell us who to be, what to want, and whom to blame. They make the world simple until it collapses under its own weight. To live in excess is to chase life until it breaks. To live in deficiency is to shrink from it until it disappears. Both lead to suffering, one through burnout, the other through emptiness. The golden mean is not an easy refuge between these states. It is a razor's edge, because equilibrium isn't passive. It's active tension, like the string of a bow held taut between rest and release. Too tight and it snaps, too loose and it's useless. Only at the precise point of balance does it become capable of music. But there's a deeper war within us, a psychological battle that Aristotle could only glimpse, but that modern thought has illuminated with new light. Freud would later call it the conflict between the ID and the superego, impulse and inhibition. Jung would speak of the shadow, the part of us that erupts when suppressed too long. The Greeks called it hubris, the arrogance of excess, the pride that blinds clarity. Our age of immediacy glorifies this imbalance. We binge on everything: work, validation, consumption, self-expression. We are rewarded for loudness, not depth. We are told to maximize every potential, every hour, every aspect of ourselves, as if meaning were a product of quantity. But meaning, Aristotle reminds us, is a question of quality, of proportion. When courage turns into aggression, when ambition becomes obsession, when humility dissolves into self-neglect, the mean has been lost, and with it, clarity fades. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "Beware that, when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster." It is a warning against extremes disguised as righteousness. Every virtue, pushed far enough, becomes its own opposite. Love without boundaries becomes possession. Discipline without compassion becomes tyranny. Confidence without humility becomes arrogance. The irony is cruel. We often lose balance precisely when we are most certain we found it. Because certainty, by its nature, tilts us toward extremity. True balance doesn't announce itself. It hums quietly beneath the noise of conviction. There is also the seduction of deficiency, a quieter but equally dangerous imbalance. The person who fears failure so deeply that they avoid effort. The one who masks cowardice as peace. The one who mistakes numbness for contentment. These are not vices of passion, but of withdrawal, the erosion of vitality disguised as serenity. Both extremes share the same root: fear. Fear of the middle, where life's contradictions coexist. The mean demands that we hold opposites: strength and tenderness, courage and caution, without collapsing into either. It requires us to live with paradox, to trust uncertainty, to walk forward without leaning too far toward the comfort of one truth. This is why balance feels so radical. It refuses the simplicity of extremes. It insists that truth is not an endpoint, but a movement, a rhythm. When Aristotle spoke of virtue as habit, he was pointing to this rhythm, not a static moral formula, but a living practice. To be balanced is to return again and again to the center, to notice when you've leaned too far and recalibrate before you fall. The question is not, what is the mean? The question is, can I feel when I've left it? Balance, then, is less about knowledge and more about awareness. It's the art of sensing when the soul begins to tip, and having the courage to step back before gravity takes you. But awareness has its price, because to know when you're out of balance, you must be willing to face what you've become. You must confront the inner war, the pull of desire and fear, of wanting too much and settling for too little. And that confrontation, raw, unfiltered, and deeply human, is where transformation begins. There comes a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when the noise begins to dissolve. You've spent years swinging between extremes, chasing meaning in the rhythm of overreach and withdrawal. And then, one day, you feel it, exhaustion disguised as purpose. The thrill of control curdles into anxiety. The comfort of withdrawal turns into emptiness. The pendulum slows. You start to see how much of your life has been spent reacting, not choosing. It's in that stillness that something ancient awakens, the yearning for the center. Aristotle believed that virtue is not taught by theory but revealed through practice, through the slow correction of our own imbalances. To find the mean, you must first wander from it. You must taste excess, experience deficiency, and then feel the ache of their consequences. Balance cannot be inherited. It must be earned through self-knowledge. And self-knowledge is not a gentle process. Feels like breaking. When the illusions of certainty fall away, you are left standing naked before yourself. The ego, that fragile architect of identity, trembles. It no longer knows which way to lean. The labels that once defined you, strong, kind, ambitious, humble, suddenly blur into contradiction. You realize that every virtue contains its shadow. Every moral clarity hides a trace of blindness. It's disorienting, even terrifying. But this disorientation is the beginning of wisdom, because the golden mean is not found through balance imposed from above, but through balance discovered within. You start to notice how your emotions, impulses, and thoughts arise like tides, each demanding your allegiance, each pulling you from the center. And for the first time, instead of obeying, you observe. You begin to see anger not as something to suppress or indulge, but as energy misdirected. You see fear not as weakness, but as awareness in disguise. You start to sense that beneath every imbalance is a misunderstood need for connection, for significance, for peace. And in that seeing, clarity blooms. This is the moment of metanoia, a turning of the soul. You begin to reclaim authorship over your being. Instead of being pushed by impulses, you begin to move with intention. The self that once scattered its energy across extremes starts gathering its fragments. You begin to walk differently, not cautiously, but consciously. To Aristotle, the virtuous person was not the one who avoided emotion, but the one who mastered its measure. Virtue, he said, is about right action at the right time for the right reason. It's a choreography between reason and feeling, neither denying the heart nor surrendering to it. But modern life complicates this dance. We are taught to prioritize logic over intuition, achievement over meaning, control over presence. We measure worth by productivity, forgetting that speed often disguises confusion. The result? A generation brilliant at movement, but lost in direction. The turning point is when you stop running from stillness. When you realize that silence is not emptiness, it is space. Space to discern what is real from what is reaction. Space to recognize that balance is not a static line but a living pulse, a conversation between your extremes. In that silence, you might hear echoes of the Delphic maxim inscribed above the ancient temple of Apollo. Know thyself. It is perhaps the oldest command in philosophy, and still the hardest to obey. Because to know yourself means to meet not only the noble parts of your being, but also the ones you've exiled. Carl Rogers, the great humanistic psychologist, once said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." Acceptance is not resignation. It is equilibrium, the refusal to war against your own humanity. Reclaiming the center, then, is not about control. It's about coherence. When the mind, the heart, and the body begin to align, not perfectly but sincerely, something shifts. You no longer chase balance, you embody it. The world outside remains turbulent. Ambition still calls, fear still whispers, desire still burns, but you no longer identify with every voice. You begin to listen from a deeper stillness, one that discerns rather than reacts. This is not the end of struggle, but the birth of freedom within it. The self becomes like a tree, its roots sunk deep into the soil of awareness, its branches flexible enough to sway with the wind. The storm no longer defines it. It simply moves through. Balance, you realize, is not a point of rest, but a rhythm of resilience. And once you touch that rhythm, even briefly, you know that clarity is not something to be found. It is something to be remembered. The ancient formula was never a secret. It was always within us, waiting for the noise to fall silent long enough for us to hear its music again. To live in the modern world is to live inside a storm, one woven of noise, speed, and contradiction. Our senses are flooded, our thoughts fragmented. We are connected to everyone, yet estranged from ourselves. The ancient pursuit of balance feels almost naive in an age defined by overload. But perhaps that's exactly why it's needed most. Aristotle lived in a time when life's pace allowed reflection. Yet even then, he saw imbalance everywhere: the tyranny of passion, the blindness of indulgence, the paralysis of fear. The golden mean was not a luxury for the privileged few. It was the architecture of wisdom itself, a way of shaping the soul amidst the forces that pull it apart. He believed that virtue is like craftsmanship. Just as a sculptor must know the right pressure to carve marble. Too little and the stone resists, too much and it shatters. So must a human being learn the right measure of every action, every emotion, every desire. The golden mean is the art of calibration. But calibration requires awareness. And awareness in this world is an act of rebellion. We live in a culture addicted to extremes. Algorithms amplify outrage. Success is measured by excess. Moderation is confused with mediocrity. The idea of enough has become almost heretical. We are taught to crave more. More status, more pleasure, more productivity, more noise. But each more distances us from the center that gives life meaning. Balance in such a world becomes a form of courage. Because to live in balance is to resist both chaos and conformity. It's to listen inwardly while the world screams outwardly. It's to act with proportion when the times reward exaggeration. This doesn't mean retreating from the world, but moving through it with discernment. Like a dancer moving through fire, graceful yet grounded. The golden mean is not withdrawal. It's participation without absorption. It's choosing engagement over escapism, depth over distraction, intention over impulse. Think of the philosopher as an architect of the invisible, designing the geometry of the soul amid the shifting landscapes of experience. The golden mean is that geometry, a pattern of proportion that holds integrity amidst movement. It does not erase conflict, but gives it symmetry. Every emotion, every decision becomes a question of degree. When does ambition stop inspiring and start devouring? When does love stop nurturing and start possessing? When does humility stop grounding and start erasing? To live this way is to move like a craftsman, attentive, responsive, deliberate. Each choice becomes a stroke on the canvas of being. Too much color, and the image bleeds into chaos. Too little, and it fades into nothingness. But in balance, it becomes art. Marcus Aurelius, centuries after Aristotle, echoed this truth when he wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Our balance, or lack of it, stains everything we touch." To cultivate moderation in a world of frenzy is not weakness. It's strength of the rarest kind. Yet balance does not mean sameness. The mean shifts with the moment, the person, the context. What is courage for one may be recklessness for another. What is gentleness today may be passivity tomorrow. The golden mean demands adaptability, the wisdom to feel the pulse of life and respond, not react. And that requires presence. Presence is the antidote to chaos. It is what keeps the inner compass aligned when the winds of excess blow hardest. In presence, you notice when desire turns into compulsion, when discipline curdles into rigidity, when confidence tips into pride. You notice the drift, and in noticing, you regain choice. It's easy to mistake balance for neutrality. But the golden mean is not about indifference. It's about intensity directed with precision. It's fire contained in form. It's the storm held in structure. It's not the absence of passion. It's its refinement. When you live this way, life stops being a sequence of reactions and becomes a composition. You begin to see that balance is not a denial of your humanity but its fulfillment, because to live proportionately is to live wholly. The person who finds balance becomes a quiet force, unshaken not because life is easy, but because they've learned its rhythm. They act without frenzy, speak without exaggeration, and love without attachment to outcome. Their clarity radiates, not as brightness, but as stillness. And stillness in a chaotic world is revolutionary. It's not the stillness of apathy, but of alignment. The stillness of one who has found their place in the geometry of the cosmos, not at the edges, but at the center where all opposites meet. To live the golden mean today is to become such a person, to hold one's humanity in proportion, to balance reason and passion, discipline and compassion, ambition and humility. It is to craft a life that feels not frantic, but measured, a life that breathes. And yet, even this harmony is not permanent. For balance, like life itself, is always in motion. A living symmetry that must be maintained, not once, but always. There is a silence that follows understanding, a stillness not of absence, but of alignment. After the storm of striving and the ache of self-confrontation, a quiet truth begins to take shape. Clarity is not what we gain, but what remains when confusion dissolves. When Aristotle spoke of eudaimonia, the flourishing of the soul, he was not describing a feeling, but a state of harmony. A life lived in rhythm with its own nature. A life balanced between its opposites. The golden mean is not a command to be calm or neutral, but a call to be whole, to live so fully in the tension of opposites that the soul becomes complete through its balance. You begin to see that clarity does not come from eliminating contradiction, but from integrating it. The warrior learns tenderness without losing strength. The thinker rediscovers wonder without abandoning reason. The lover gives freely without dissolving the self. To live well is to become the meeting point of paradox. And that is the secret geometry of the golden mean. It transforms opposition into complementarity. Every vice, every virtue, every impulse becomes part of a greater pattern, curved toward harmony. But harmony is not comfort. It demands vigilance, humility, and renewal. For every balance, once found, begins to tilt. Every center shifts. The task of the wise is not to remain still, but to realign continuously, to adjust the instrument of the self so that its music remains true. Clarity, then, is not the brightness of certainty, but the lucidity of awareness, the ability to see one's distortions without being defined by them. It is the recognition that truth is not a static point, but a movement toward equilibrium. And yet, most of us spend our lives looking outward, toward ideals, authorities, systems, hoping they'll anchor us. But no one can tell you where your mean lies. The balance between your courage and your caution, your reason and your desire, your solitude and your connection. It is a private art, a dialogue between your deepest values and your lived reality. To walk this path is to become your own philosopher. In the end, the golden mean is less about moral instruction than it is about existential maturity. It asks us to outgrow the seduction of extremes, the drama of all-or-nothing thinking, the pride of absolute conviction, the false peace of indifference. It asks us to meet life on its own terms, in its complexity, its contradiction, its constant motion, and to move through it with proportion. The philosopher Seneca once wrote, "To be calm is the highest achievement of the self." But calmness, rightly understood, is not passivity. It is the poise of a being who has made peace with their own nature, who acts without excess and rests without deficiency. It is the state of one who has discovered that to live well is to be in tune with the rhythm of existence itself. In such a life, even suffering has symmetry. It ceases to feel like punishment and begins to feel like purification, the necessary friction that shapes virtue. The moments of loss, failure, or doubt are not evidence of imbalance, but opportunities for recalibration. They remind us of our humanity, that fragile and magnificent dance between limit and aspiration. Because perhaps the truest wisdom Aristotle ever offered was not moral at all, but musical. The mean is the melody within the noise. It's the still axis around which the world turns. It's the center that remains untouched while everything else sways. The person who finds that center moves differently. They do not rush to defend themselves, nor to prove themselves. They no longer seek control through domination, but through alignment. Their choices flow not from impulse, but from integrity. They act not to be seen, but because action itself has become expression, the natural unfolding of an ordered soul. Clarity, then, is not seeing more, it's seeing rightly. It's perceiving the world as it is, without the distortion of excess emotion or the fog of deficiency. It's standing in the middle of life's contradictions and saying, yes, all of this belongs. And so, you begin to understand that the golden mean is not merely an ethical compass. It's a way of being in the world. A bridge between chaos and calm, reason and instinct, body and spirit. It is not perfection but proportion, not certainty but coherence. The ancients sought gods to embody this balance. Athena for wisdom, Apollo for harmony, Dionysus for ecstasy. But Aristotle turned the search inward. The divine, he suggested, is not above us. It's within the measured soul, in the human capacity to find form within flux. To live by the golden mean is to remember that every moment, no matter how fractured, carries the potential for symmetry. Every fall contains the seed of poise. Every excess conceals the hint of its opposite. And every human being, no matter how lost, carries within them the blueprint of balance. Perhaps this is what it means to live with clarity, to become a living harmony, to move through contradiction without breaking, to burn without consuming, to love without losing the self. And when that harmony is reached, however briefly, the noise of the world fades into something else. It becomes rhythm. It becomes meaning. It becomes the quiet sound of a life lived in proportion. A life that, finally, feels whole.